All right, so welcome back. This is Jeff here. I'm Mr. Jameson. We're going to be working through another problem. And Jeff, I don't think you have any idea how to do this problem, do you? You're lost in the field.
I would just have to go with what I was given, and it would not turn out very well.
I can tell that you're being a great actor here, so I appreciate that. But to check out what the problem is, it's on your Gluon, or it's not in your Gluon, and you have no idea what that means because you're someone in a different country that's watching this, or at a different school, and you have no idea who I am. So the problem is we want to graph the square root of x minus 2. So can you zoom in on this? All right, so this is what we're trying to graph. Y equals the square root of x minus 2. And then it asks for the lowest x value and the highest x value. And we've got a handy-dandy little graph here. So the tools that we need are a pencil and a calculator. Now this one looks pretty fancy. It's okay though, it's the same one as the one you have. So what we want to do is go into your calculator, and you want to go into the y equals button. So you press the y equals button, and then you want to enter in whatever y equals, which was the square root of x minus 2. So we would type in this second button, and then we type in the square root button right there. And this one's going to look a little weird, but basically we just type in the x and the minus 2, and just make sure that the square root goes all the way across. In your case, on your calculator, I think it's going to start with a parenthesis here. Just make sure you close the parenthesis after you're done, so that basically what's happening is everything inside the parentheses is underneath this line here, underneath the big square root line. So if you want a whole bunch of stuff, close the parenthesis whenever you want this square root sign to close. And that's for everything in the future too. All right? So once we have that into y equals, I could just hit graph. Now sometimes somebody messed with your settings and it won't look good, but if you just hit graph, this is the standard graph that you'll get. What I really want you to do is go back into the table. So you hit second and then graph again and go into the table. Now, here's your x column. So these are all your x coordinates that are matched up with your y coordinates, and basically you just need to go through and graph them. So there's a few errors, and I'll explain that in a second, but the first one that you can graph is at x equals 2 and y equals 0. So Jeff, where's 2, 0?
Well,
Can you put
2, 0 is right here.
All right, so on my graph, I'm going to do the same thing. That's going to be 2 over in the positive direction and then 0 up. Okay, and then we look at the next coordinate, which is going to be 3, 1. 3, 1. So then I graph 3, 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 1. And then we've got, let's see the next one. It's going to be 4 and 1.4142. I don't want to graph that. So I'm going to graph, ooh, it looks like you're jumping ahead. Maybe you know something I didn't.
Well, I know that for normal graphs, there's always kind of a pattern we see with this progression, and it always goes up 1 over 1, and then up another 1 and over 3, and then up another 1 up and over 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like a parabola, actually, except it's put it on its side.
Right.
So a parabola, it basically, if I flipped it this way, I'll have like half of a parabola. We'll have the positive version of it. So as I finish this, 1, 2, 3,
Which
there's
is
this
where
one.
you would see that pattern.
So if I followed all the points that I had in my calculator, it's going to do the same thing. But basically, it's going to look like this. And it's going to go up that way. Now, you're used to putting arrows on both sides. Don't put an arrow on this lower side because the graph doesn't continue to go in this direction. It stops right there. And the negative side of that would be over here. But for right now, we're just going to graph this part. All right, so that's what we got there. That was, by the way, why we had errors in the calculator. Because anything lower than x equals 2, we get an error. All right? And you can see that from the graph. You can also see it from this graph right here. It kind of matches up. So now we can start answering these questions. The lowest x value. The lowest x value is, well, what's the smallest one? That's another way of saying it. What's the smallest x value?
Looks like 2 is the smallest x value.
Yeah, so the smallest x value is going to be 2. So the number 2. It doesn't go any lower than that. The highest one, what's the highest one?
Well, the highest one, parabola's go on forever, so I would say infinity, right?
Yep, it goes on forever. So the highest, that's why we put the arrows on there. So it's infinity. The way you draw an infinity symbol is a sideways 8. So if you want to turn your paper and then write an 8, or you can just draw an infinity symbol this way. You may have seen people running around with necklaces that have this little symbol. It means infinity. It goes on and on and on and on forever. When we're saying x values, I just mean whatever the x coordinate is. So I don't care about how tall the graph goes or how low it goes. I only care about how far left it goes in the x values or how far right it goes. Later on, we're going to connect this to domain and range, but for right now, just get an idea of what it looks like there. In your worksheet, you're going to have a bunch of other problems like this, and it's all the same steps. I hope that helped.